This is Counter-Narrative News on the 3rd of January 2023. In East Jerusalem, Israeli Security Minister Ben-Gvir has conducted what many Palestinians are seeing as a provocative incursion into the Al-Aqsa compound, which is the third most holiest site for Muslims and part of the politics of Israeli colonization in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. Pretty much every Palestinian political party and liberation movement has denounced this as a great provocation. Also, just next to Bethlehem, as the Israeli army continues its raids, which results in the injuries and deaths of Palestinians, they've shot dead a 15-year-old young Palestinian boy, accusing him of quote-unquote violent clashes. It should be reflected that the Israeli army has one of the most sophisticated military machines in the world and is conducting an illegal occupation on the West Bank, including expanding illegal settlements, and young people, often with stones, sometimes with firebombs, respond to tanks, helicopters, armored vehicles, and a very armed army personnel force, such as the context and the great imbalance between the two opposing sides. It has to also be said, though, however, that there is an armed Palestinian resistance to the Israeli attempts at colonization, and particularly in Nablus and Jenin, Israeli army incursions do meet with quite vociferous armed resistance. In China recently, in the Henan province, there has been somewhat of a riot of Chinese people as the authorities banned fireworks celebrations, but people were letting off fireworks anyway from their cars. And after one particular driver was stopped by police, he decided with other people to respond to that by attacking police and overturning a police car, which, according to video reports, was met with great jubilation by hundreds, if not thousands, of Chinese citizens. This really challenges the way the Chinese leadership like to portray globally their image of stability and paternalism amongst the Chinese people, and it's very interesting to see these pictures, not that kind of far off from the anti-COVID, the zero COVID policy protests that happened just a few weeks ago. So it indicates perhaps an interesting relative shift of Chinese citizens deciding to take to the streets against authority there. In East Africa, the 2-year conflict in Ethiopia, particularly around the Tigray region, seems to be concluding to an end. 2 years of an ethnic war in which Addis responded to an apparent provocation by the TPLF regional government in Tigray against an Ethiopian army checkpoint in Mekelle, then triggered Addis deciding to make a decision to engage in a full-scale war, dragging in armed troops from the Eritrean state and also Somali troops. One perhaps has to reflect and ask, well, what was the point of a 2-year ethnic war, which involved many rapes, injury, torture, and death, if in the conclusion of which there was going to be a peace agreement and we go back to the status quo. Coming to news today in Britain, the RMT, which is the railway union, the trade union of railway workers, is conducting its 5-day strike. But also there's reports that a settlement to the general strike movement by the RMT is shortly going to be announced. Some are expressing concern about this because the RMT is cutting deals of 4% pay rises with an annual bonus of around £750, and they're promoting this as a positive settlement, which in real terms principalizes a pay cut, as inflation is around 11-12% in the last several years. The National Health Service continues to deepen its crisis as a result of many decades now of creeping privatization, with many medical experts alleging that there are 300 to 500 excess deaths a week because of the failures of the NHS. The Tories are defensive about this, but they are not seeking to address the crisis by any serious kind of funding, and the creeping privatization continues. In other news, well-known far-right activist Tommy Robinson, real name Yaxley-Lennon, has come out in defense of imprisoned, open and proud misogynist and racist Andrew Tate, who with his brother are being held by Romanian authorities for rape and people trafficking. He has come out in defense and is promoting the very similar conspiracy theories from which Andrew Tate and his camp are espousing. Also in news about Tommy Robinson Yaxley-Lennon, he has recently on a video podcast criticized and attacked and somewhat mocked the original Farm Boys organized social organization or crew, or some people call gang, in Tottenham at the famous or infamous, some people might argue, Broadwater Farm Council estate. Original Farm Boys put a bounty on Tommy Robinson's head in the lead up to June the 13th, 2020, when Tommy Robinson Yaxley-Lennon decided to start aiming at black youth inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement, which culminated on June the 13th, 2020, when Tommy Robinson and other far-right activists mobilized their forces against black youth, purportedly in the quote-unquote defense of the Churchill statue in Parliament Square. Original Farm Boys put a bounty on Tommy Robinson's head, making him cancel his appearance straight away, and black youth successfully concluded defending themselves against racist provocations on June the 13th, delivering one of the most important street victories against the far right on the streets in this last 20-25 years. Please like and subscribe and share, and please do ask any questions or critique going forward. All the best.